This is the CBS Evening News. Susan Spencer reporting. Good evening. The Democrats press toward Tuesday's primary singing the same song today, I Love New York. The latest polls show that Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis may have the best reason to love it. He is holding his lead. But as CBS News chief political correspondent Bruce Morton reports, at today's debate, you'd hardly have known that this is a knockdown, drag-out fight.
The debate was mostly sweetness and light. Everyone said everyone else could be elected, and there were jokes about who might get the nomination.
Mike and I came over here on different boats. He came over here on the immigrant boat. I came over here on a slave boat, but we're in the same boat now, and I intend to be the captain of the ship.
And I'll be the admiral.
But this is New York.
Arches, bridges falling down.
This morning, Jackson led a march across the Williamsburg Bridge, which has been closed because it needs repairs, emphasizing his theme that the city's and the country's infrastructure needs rebuilding. Michael Dukakis and his wife, who is Jewish, marched in a parade honoring Israel's 40th birthday. So did Albert Gore and his principal sponsor, New York City Mayor Edward Koch. This hate group marched too.
We hate Jesse Jackson.
Koch said some of Jackson's old civil rights movement colleagues aren't supporting him because he lied about his closeness to Dr. Martin Luther King when King was killed.
I think they're disgusted with the fact that he sought to use that in a way that was false and to feather his own nest.
CBS News has polled 677 likely Democratic voters Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Our sample shows Dukakis leading. Here's how the numbers look. But note that 20% are undecided, and in other primaries this year, a lot of voters have decided late. Our poll shows Jackson with 12% support among whites. Jews in our sample liked Albert Gore, though overall his negatives were higher than his positives, but Jews we polled said they were voting for Dukakis. Gore disputes this.
We have the momentum in this contest. We are climbing more rapidly than either of the others.
Our poll, of course, disagrees with that. Everybody does agree on one thing: turnout will be very important, and Jesse Jackson's voters seem the most committed. Dukakis's, one neighborhood newspaper headlined, Riverdale voters yawn and back Duke. Susan?
Thank you, Bruce. Governor Dukakis doubtless would love to duplicate in New York what he did yesterday in Arizona's caucuses. Final tallies show he trounced Jesse Jackson 54 to 38%. Senator Gore won only 5% of the vote. Plane-by-plane inspections are underway on Eastern Airlines, and today there was even more bad news for Eastern's parent company, Texas Air. Jacqueline Adams has details.
The unions battling Texas Air Chairman Frank Lorenzo won another round today. The Transportation Department announced almost $1 million in proposed penalties against Lorenzo's Continental Airlines. And starting tomorrow, it will extend the extensive safety inspections begun last Wednesday on his Eastern Airlines to all Continental planes.
It'll be just like the Eastern investigation. We'll have people who'll be walking around the planes and through them and talking to the maintenance personnel and the folks in the cockpit, and making sure that anything that can be readily identified is corrected.
So far, federal air safety inspectors have found 19 violations in the 200 Eastern airplanes they've examined. But Burnley leveled his sharpest criticism at the Airline Pilots Union for flooding the FAA with some 1,300 Eastern safety complaints, only 6 of which were substantiated, in effect turning air safety into a political weapon.
It's really, when you think about it, an anti-safety device to tie our people up. So I've asked ALPA to cut it out. I don't think anybody, labor or management, ought to make safety a football in labor management disputes.
Airline Pilots Union officials could not be reached for comment, but their ally, the International Machinists Union, denied the charge.
I would submit that he ought to go talk to the pilots that make the complaints. He ought to follow them up with the individuals registering a complaint and talk to the mechanics who make the complaints instead of going talking to Frank Lorenzo and his staff to find out if they're true or not.
Lorenzo insists he has to cut labor costs to make his airline solvent. Observers believe that if his companies can withstand the next 30 days' intensive safety inspections, the unions will suffer a severe setback and may be forced to begin making concessions they've long opposed. Jacqueline Adams, CBS News, Washington.
Coming up, Billy Graham preaches in China. And a bit later on Inside Sunday, a look at banking and your cash after the crash.
Why I like stovetop in a canister? Where I work, I never know when. My boss will drop in and shout, "Let's party, men." So what do I make the whole crew to eat? Stovetop in a canister. It's wonderfully neat. It's the stuffing they love, and I make it by the cup for 2, 6, or 8. Whoever shows up, there's always enough. And you know what's nice? We redo the scene so we can eat it twice.
Stovetop stuffing in the canister.
Lucky for this diver, he has a thin, powerful seal. So thin it's virtually airtight. So powerful it even holds up to pressure. No, it's not on this diver's mask. The seal is on his dentures. Extra Hold Fast Teeth has a seal so thin yet so powerful, it's virtually airtight. For a hold that's closer to real than any ordinary adhesive, Extra Hold Fast Teeth, the extra hold seal that's closer to real.
If you heard the report on 59 cold cereals by a leading consumer magazine, you'd fall through the floor.
Mine's high in calcium.
And salt.
Salt?
High in fiber.
And sugar.
Sugar? Lots of protein.
And added fat.
Fat?
The magazine rated shredded wheat tops in nutrition. For no added sugar or salt, low fat, plenty of fiber and protein. Shredded wheat. And nobody else.
Hijackers holding more than 30 hostages in that Kuwaiti airliner softened their threatening tone today and allowed an Algerian mediator on board for more negotiations. Bill McLaughlin has the latest.
Again today, negotiators came and went with no result. From the beginning, the terrorists have threatened to kill all their hostages unless Kuwait releases 17 fellow terrorists from jail. But Kuwait has refused to budge. Yesterday, the terrorists said they would fly out of Algiers to carry on their mayhem elsewhere. Still, Kuwait did not budge. Today, the terrorists backed down. They said they would stay on indefinitely at the request of the Algerian government. And later today, they again had a hostage radio the control tower. He sent his love to his parents and begged the Kuwaiti government to give in. If not, he said, our end is black.
But it seems virtually certain that Kuwait will not give in, and almost as certain that the desperation of these terrorists will grow. Bill McLaughlin, CBS News, Algiers Airport.
PLO leader Yasser Arafat charged the United States today with complicity in yesterday's assassination in Tunis of his top deputy, known as Abu Jihad. Arafat charged the U.S. gave the killers the green light. The killers haven't been identified, but most Israeli analysts have little doubt as to who was responsible. Bob Simon reports.
Abu Jihad's picture was prominent in Gaza today. His name had been prominent on the Israeli hit list for a long time. The Israeli establishment maintained an official and predictable silence today.
I read it in the paper. I'll say I have nothing to comment.
But military sources pointed with pride to what they called the Israeli stamp on the operation, the fact that his wife and 2 daughters were right there and were not harmed. They also said that for connoisseurs, this operation was even more impressive than the Entebbe raid, since the intelligence had to be so precise, knowing exactly where he would be at exactly what time. Observers also pointed out that the seaborne assassination was reminiscent of an Israeli attack on PLO officials in Beirut 15 years ago. The leader of that attack is now Israel's deputy chief of staff. Another participant is now head of military intelligence. Today's protests did not surprise Israel's leaders. They knew that in the short run, the operation would intensify the uprising. But they believed that in the long run, it would lower the temperature, since Abu Jihad was the essential link between the PLO and the Palestinians in the territories. Some left-wing officials had backed the operation, arguing that the elimination of Abu Jihad, the personification of the PLO's military option, would make it easier for Yasser Arafat and King Hussein to join the peace process. But the murder broke a tacit pact that the Israelis and the PLO would not murder each other's leaders abroad. Israeli officials inside and outside the country have been placed on alert, expecting retribution. For the Palestinians, a new date has been engraved in their calendar of martyrs. Abu Jihad vowed he would return to Palestine. He will be buried in Amman, 40 miles from Israeli-occupied territory. Bob Simon, CBS News, Jerusalem.
At the Nicaraguan peace talks today, the Sandinista government made a new proposal, one it said could make the temporary ceasefire permanent. And the Contra rebel response wasn't long in coming. David Dow reports.
Sandinista government negotiators handed the Contras a peace proposal, then ran to the press while the Contras studied it. Defense Minister Humberto Ortega said it was a rational plan containing a timetable for a definitive ceasefire, replacing the current 60-day truce. Within minutes, Contra leaders were at the same podium, blasting the proposal in terms that indicated the peace process may have taken a step backwards.
It has taken us back to the month of December when the negotiations began.
If they were to stick to their proposal, I could tell you that the peace process would definitely stop right here.
The U.S.-backed Contras complain the Sandinista proposal is long on details for their disarmament, but short on other specifics, including steps toward democratic reforms. Though the peace talks have taken place behind the guarded gates of a tourist hotel, talks closed except for one brief photo session, some of the underlying differences have erupted publicly. An appearance by Contra women quickly simmered into a shouting match with Nicaraguan reporters over political origins.
Y usted también fue somocista. Y usted ahora es sandinista. Y eso yo soy nicaragüense.
The Sandinistas claim there is freedom of expression here, and today they allowed a march by 2,000 members of opposition groups in the city of Chinandega. Meanwhile, more talks were scheduled in an atmosphere that one Contra leader described as pessimistic. David Dow, CBS News, Managua.
Church workers in Beijing say his appearance today was not announced in advance, but it was still standing room only for evangelist Billy Graham's first sermon in officially atheist China. John Cheyenne reports.
The Reverend Billy Graham visited a congregation that included many elderly Chinese, a generation whose members, until a few years ago, were sent to prison and to labor camps for the crime of practicing their religion. Earlier, the American evangelist met Prime Minister Li Peng, who told him, "We don't have the same God, but we can talk anyway." Though foreign missionaries are outlawed in China, Graham was allowed to preach.
We thank thee for this great nation of China. We pray today for its leaders, as we are told to pray for those in authority.
Graham's visit is only the latest example of China's growing tolerance of Christianity. The present leaders have allowed about 4,000 churches to reopen. By Chinese government estimates, there are 7 million practicing Christians, less than 1% of the population.
There are far more Christians here now than there were in 1949 when the missionaries had to leave. They've done very well on their own.
Graham's first sermon in China may have won him his first Chinese convert. Xu Guowei, a Beijing student, had never before been in a church. Listening to Billy Graham, she said, made her feel that she had been purified.
I'm sure I will be here again.
Graham said he would talk with Chinese officials about some other Christian clergymen who cannot preach, about a dozen Chinese Catholic priests who are still in prison after more than 20 years. John Cheyenne, CBS News, Beijing.
You're on your way.
Kids and science can really get together in the right kind of place. So Dow has developed and funded the Touch Tech Laboratory here at Impression 5 in Lansing, Michigan.
In this particular experiment, we're going to make a solid out of 2 liquids.
It's a hands-on museum that puts the wonders of science at a child's fingertips.
Here you go, PJ.
And who knows what that could lead to.
Dow lets you do great things.
Nothing should come between you and your pet. Set the Hearts 2-in-1 collar. The collar that kills fleas and ticks for 5 months. Keeps them off your pet and out of your home. Go ahead. Hug, snuggle, tickle him. The Hearts 2-in-1 collar lets you get close to your pet without getting close to fleas and ticks. If you want to hug a happier pet and have peace of mind, get the Hearts 2-in-1 collar.
For Vanish Drop-Ins, the Bull Brothers.
I pop in Vanish Drop-Ins and look so clean. So drop in Vanish Drop-Ins.
Vanish Drop-Ins are here. Just drop one in the tank to help keep your bowl looking clean and smelling fresh for weeks. And since drop-ins dissolve completely, you never touch them again. What could be easier?
So drop in Vanish Drop-Ins.
And when you brush, try Dual Action Liquid Vanish. It freshens the bathroom and it outcleans Lysol on tough rust stains below the waterline. Liquid Vanish makes your toilet sing.
Nervous investors will be keeping a close watch on the stock market tomorrow after last week's mini crash. Tonight on Inside Sunday, we'll take a look at fallout from the big October crash. After that one, 6 months ago this week, a lot of people fled the uncertainty of Wall Street for the perceived security of the bank down the block. Tonight on Inside Sunday, banks, bucks, and the small investor playing it safe.
We primarily think of banks as a place where we put our money rather than underneath in our mattress.
No money has gone under the mattress, but the October crash scared the Zamets enough to convince them to put their new investments right into the old savings account.
We've been burnt once, and we're a little leery of being burnt again.
Since the crash, there's been a dramatic increase in deposits at S&Ls. From October to March a year ago, people were withdrawing more than they were putting in. But this year finds deposits up over 18%.
Instead of thinking of 20% or 50% returns, I think people are going to say, gee, I'd rather just for 20 years save and get 6% and have my money when I'm finished.
The investors' desperate search for security has the S&Ls laughing all the way to the bank.
Looked at interest rates or the stock market lately? Up, down. Who knows where they'll go next?
One S&L credits its anti-market ad campaign with increasing new deposits $100 million.
If you love the ups of the stock market, but just can't stand the downs, the Wall Street CD, another first from Murray Savings.
And economists say market jitters have had an effect beyond the banks. People actually are saving more, putting away a higher percentage of their income. Economists find all this very good news, especially in light of the country's huge budget deficit.
If we don't save money and continue basically to borrow in order to, really what we're doing now is borrowing from foreigners in order to finance our consumption.
And more savings increases the pool of money for investment here and at home.
When consumers save more, the U.S. economy, the financial system, funnels the funds right back into the U.S. economy for investment, and that's what we need in a very serious way.
People like the Zamets are, of course, happy to hear all this macroeconomic good news, but like many others, there's still an aftershock from the October crash. And with another baby on the way, they say they'll keep playing it safe by banking on the bank.
I'm hoping to really just be where I am with that sense of security behind me, with more money in the bank.
Money in the bank. The expression is synonymous with safety and security. But consider this, there were 184 bank failures last year. Bill Whitaker looks now at how you can be sure your deposit is safe if your bank is not sound.
Another Texas bank goes belly up, the third in this North Houston suburb this year.
What do you think about this? I just don't know what to do. What little money I had was in there. I mean, it was just $250, but what little I had.
I'm getting kind of fed up with it. I'll take my money home and put it in a can, I guess.
Texas built its way into banking trouble. When the oil-fueled economy was booming, banks and savings and loans financed an unprecedented building spree. Now, with the oil boom gone bust, the real estate market has crumbled, leaving bankers holding billions of dollars in bad loans. That's what happened to the Cy-Fair Bank in suburban Houston.
We do have several problem banks in the area. I would say that probably there will be more failures.
Most customers don't have to worry. Their deposits, up to $100,000, are insured by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, one of the pillars of the American banking system. But that's the problem. So many U.S. banks are failing that the Federal Insurance Agency is expected to lose money this year for the first time in its 55-year history. It's even worse for the nation's savings and loans. So many have gone under that the Federal Savings and Loan Insurance Corporation, which underwrites savings institutions, has technically gone broke. And 1/3 of those still in business are losing money.
We estimated that just for the worst, I think it's around 200 institutions, the cost to resolving them was about $10 billion.
The Federal Savings Loan Insurance Corporation plain and simply didn't have the money to go down and close down these institutions and pay off all of these depositors.
That's got bankers, creditors, and depositors worried. Many are looking to Congress for help.
Clearly, if in fact more problems occur like have occurred in the FSLIC, the possibility of a taxpayer bailout becomes more and more real.
But a multi-billion-dollar bailout is politically unpopular. Still, many in the financial community urge quick action so that Americans won't lose confidence in their banking system, even as they continue to lose a record number of banks. Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Houston.
If some Americans are losing confidence in banks, many others still depend on them heavily, especially the poor. But the banks are fast losing interest in them. David Culhane reports on how the poor are getting less bank for their bucks.
This neighborhood in North Philadelphia is a classic example of a chronic national problem, redlining. Banks refuse loans in an entire area for home purchases or small businesses simply because the people there are poor.
But community groups here in Philadelphia and around the country say that there is a new, subtle form of redlining. Banks are closing branches in poor neighborhoods or charging so much for services that low-income people cannot maintain accounts.
They just bypass this neighborhood, you know.
It's limited, and that's all I can say. They should have more, but, you know, no one wants to come down in the neighborhood.
I don't think that we should be penalized. You know, we're just little people. We're trying to save money.
Naira McClendon is a single parent with a low-paying job. She finds it very difficult to maintain a checking account because the bank charges are so high and the minimum balance requirements are so stiff.
I had a bounce check. The check itself was only in the amount of $10. The fee that I was charged for the bounce check was $25.
Community activists say the effect of a whole range of service charges like this is to price low-income people out of banking.
It's really the people with the least amount of income that are getting burned with these charges.
Banks say they close branches to cut costs. Their critics say it is because profits are low there. At least one Philadelphia bank says it is trying to help the poor. First Pennsylvania is opening service offices called 3-2 centers.
We sell food coupons. You can pay your telephone bill there. You can pay your electric bill there. Money orders are available there. We do check cashing there.
So far, First Pennsylvania's move into poor neighborhoods is still the exception rather than the rule in the banking community.
We're not going to be able to bank. We're not going to be able to save.
In other words, low-income people could be pushed out of traditional banking altogether. They would be forced instead to use high-fee check cashing centers and then to hide their money in their homes. David Culhane, CBS News, Philadelphia.
Congress is currently considering legislation to revamp and modernize the U.S. banking system. One proposal would allow banks to get into the securities business for the first time since the Depression. But a key ingredient in any changes Congress might make is the protection of consumers who put their money and their trust in their banks.
How long do you think grape nuts will stay crunchy in milk?
Longer than I want to wait.
Have a little patience.
I'd rather have a little grape nut cereal, thank you.
Come on, wait. This is for science.
Oh, this is for science.
That's right.
Major appliances that aren't brand new can scare potential buyers away. If your real estate company can't protect them, you're not listed with the right real estate company because you're not listed with an ERA broker. Selling a house can be frustrating. If your real estate company can't buy your home if they don't sell it, you're not listed with the right real estate company because you're not listed with an ERA broker.
Comprehensive health services and protection at an affordable cost. That's what one of America's strongest insurance, financial, and health service experts offers you. All backed by 52 years of health service expertise that covers over 8 million Americans. It's one of the most dramatic developments in healthcare today. From the Travelers, you're better off under the umbrella.
Guess what?
After all this time, it's still crunchy.
And it's still nutty.
Because it's grape nuts.
You think I'll still be crunchy after the show?
Are you grown up enough to wait that long? I didn't think so.
Post Grape Nut cereal, the one and only.
There were anniversary ceremonies today in Warsaw to honor Polish Jews who died in World War II's ghetto uprising. But in a sign of continuing problems for the communist government, the biggest observance was unofficial. Bert Quint reports.
Polish opposition groups gathered around the Monument to the Dead today to pay homage to the victims of the 1943 uprising and to show that their fight against the country's communist regime is becoming more widespread. The old Solidarity Union was here, and a newly reborn Student Solidarity. Most visible of all, an illegal party demanding freedom from Soviet domination. The sole surviving leader of the Ghetto Revolt, a longtime foe of the regime, also presided over a ceremony honoring two Polish Jewish socialists killed by Stalin, a not-so-subtle anti-Soviet gesture. There were official ceremonies, too, like the awarding of Israeli medals to Poles who saved Jews during the war. But the presence at the unauthorized gatherings of some of Poland's most dedicated and brilliant people pointed up the country's most serious weakness. The tragedy of Poland today is that there is so much hatred, so much suspicion between the regime and the people who could help it pull this country out of its impoverished present. Nearly forgotten today, thousands of foreign Jews here for the anniversary of the ghetto uprising. Among them, young Americans seeking strength from God and from each other. Bert Quint, CBS News, Warsaw.
That is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather will be here tomorrow. I'll be back later with an update on the CBS Sunday Night News. I'm Susan Spencer. Have a good evening.
It's a big game, big boy. And that basket seems mighty high. But you know you got the stuff because your mama got you off the ground this morning with a real winner. Howdy ho, wheat, time to gloat. Cause you don't wear no sugar coat. You just can't beat that pure whole wheat. Now go tell your mama what the big boys eat.
Dreaming, the dreams of America.
Now GMAC does more than finance and lease new GM cars and trucks. We finance homes with GMAC mortgages, finance boats, and our MIC insurance helps keep dreams safe.
The dreams of America, GMAC. We're making your dreams come true. The dreams of America, GMAC.
Official sponsor of America's Dreams.
Dentuaries. Now everybody's calling me the Fresh Mouth. Thanks to Super Strength Polidin Green. It's got a minty mouthwash ingredient, so it freshens up dentures as it cleans tough stains. Try Super Strength Polidin Green, the mouth freshening clean. Ah.
James Garner's brother.
I'm Jack Garner. I'm no movie star, but my investment firm, Dean Witter, still treats me like a leading man.
You're somebody, Dean Witter.
A member of the Sears Financial Network.
I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Tomorrow we'll take you to the Andy Warhol auction and visit with Peter Ustinov.
This week, Stacy Keach and Larry King on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.